All right, Frankie Familia. It's time. Welcome to the Frankie from Flatbush show on FSPN, the Frankie Sports Programming Network. Now, we got ourselves a game. The Gotham City Football Club against the Buffalo Bills. They're coming into New Jersey, and they're going to bring their team, which is basically Josh Allen and a bunch of other people. Um, and they're going to try to win because they're supposed to be in the Super Bowl conversation. They had to pull out a miraculous win in the first week against the Ravens, comeback win at home. So we got to talk about what are the three keys to beating this team. Now, before we get into that, I'm going to show you one last thing about our last game against Pittsburgh, just so we understand something very basic. And I don't think I talked about this on any other videos, but it's about our personnel tendency. This is something that we track here at FSPN with our drive charts and everything. But we basically had three different kinds of personnel packages against the Steelers: 11, 12, and 21. We didn't use anything else. We had some speculation that in an RPO heavy offense, which we currently are, we were 16% RPOs. When I use the term RPO, I mean any kind of zone read. Sometimes it's an RPO, sometimes it's called a zone read, sometimes it's called something else. All of those things where the quarterback is reading a defender before he either hands the ball off, and there's a mesh point typically with the running back. And while they're in the mesh, that's when the quarterback's making the read. Anything like that, I call an RPO. Okay, just for clarity's sake now, we had speculated that they might use more 10 personnel in RPO style. We did not see that in the first game, so that's interesting in and of itself. Secondly, in 11 personnel, we used it 58% of the time, which was about league average, so no problem. We ranked 14th in effectiveness out of 11. So our 11 personnel was okay, average. We used it an average amount, and it was successful an average amount. However, the real point to notice here is our 12 and 21 personnel. 12 is two tight ends, one running back. We used it at 32.26, higher than the league average, and we came in second in effectiveness. So we were very effective out of 12 personnel. That's Mason and that's Jeremy Ruckert. So keep that in mind. You might see even more. We might lean into that more, considering how successful we were in game one. We might lean into that even more in game two. Similarly, 21 personnel. We used it at a 9.68% rate, almost double the league average, but only 6 times, so not a ton. But when we did run it, we ranked third in the league in using it. That's Andrew Beck. So those players are very important, and especially Andrew Beck, it might get more run in this game as well. Something else to watch, because we were very successful in 21 personnel with Beck as the fullback. Primarily, we didn't use the pony package too much with Brees and Braylon or Isaiah. So it was mostly Beck, the fullback, in the 21 package. And, of course, I told you about Andrew Beck all summer, the sniffer in the offense. I have a video about that if you want to go back and take a look. Very important player for us. Now, but that's looking back. What about this game against the Bills? What about looking forward? Well, I think the first key of the game, what percentage of the offense is RPOs? We're going to continue to track this. As I said, previous to the first game, some people wanted to give me pushback on it, but I was saying we're going to be probably in the top of the league in terms of RPOs. They're very important. Again, any kind of zone read. We ran 16% in game one and had good success on it. A good success overall. As an offense, obviously, we put up 32 points. Fields looked great. Things were rolling along. The only problem we had in that entire game was the passing defense. Everything else looked good. We were running the ball. We were passing the ball efficiently. We were stopping the run. We just weren't stopping the pass, and that's what killed us in the end, plus a 60-yard field goal at the end. But nonetheless, 16%. And as you remember, some of the benchmarks we had last year, the Eagles were the top of the league, 24% for RPO plays in their games, and the second in the league was 16%. So we were at 16%, so that's going to be high. So we did run a high percentage of RPOs as anticipated, and we put up 32 points. That's great to know. But is that going to continue, or are we going to change up against Buffalo? Something to continue. Second, what about the tight front? We were speculating about the tight front alignment on D, specifically with Harrison Phillips being acquired as a zero tech nose tackle, which we haven't had here in a long time. Would we do any craziness like a tight front out of a 4-3, which is a little unusual, but can be done, and it would have been fun to see it, but we didn't really. And we didn't really need it. But especially if Buffalo starts running the ball better than Pittsburgh did, might you see that kind of an adjustment from Steve Wilks? Now, if you see three linemen together and one out wide, and Phillips in particular is right on the nose, and the two ends are in a 2-eye technique, two ends in this scenario. One would technically be a defensive tackle, but in this kind of alignment, we're using a 3-4 concept in a 4-3 with an outside backer, which is technically a defensive end. Somebody like Jermaine Johnson would just play the role of an additional linebacker, but he would just line up in a wide 9 or something like that. So that's something to look for. Then let's talk about blitz rates. Let's talk about blitz, baby. All right, for that, we're going to use a little screen share. So if you take a look at these blitz rates, it's interesting because teams that blitz a lot typically do not trust, well, it could be a different kinds of philosophies, but typically aren't trusting their front to get home. So they need help. Blitz is typically defined as 5 or more men rushing at the same time. And you can see in the first game, Buffalo, very high. Oh, let me make this a little bigger. Buffalo was third highest in the league last week. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're going to do this week, but it could mean that they're not trusting their front. If you remember, they poured a lot of resources into their defense this offseason and looked like they were trying to say, okay, it's Josh Allen plus all these people we're getting on defense, Joey Bosa and this one and that one. Ed Oliver will be out this game. So that might mean that they do need to continue blitzing at a high rate. We're down here at 11th, so we're in the middle of the league. And not all blitzes are the same. A 6-man blitz, is that really the same as a 5-man blitz, a 7-man blitz? Where are they coming from? When are they coming? Et cetera, et cetera. How are you disguising it? But in general, does Buffalo need to continue to blitz? And how does Justin respond to that? Is he able to burn them on the blitz, or is he getting shakalaka ding-dong all day? That's not good. So do they get home and get those sacks out of the blitzes if they continue to blitz at a high rate? And then what do we do? I mean, we were at 35%. I would say blitz the hell out of Josh Allen. Not that he can't beat it or that he has trouble with it, but it's a high risk, high reward type of thing for us. If Josh Allen's going to kill you anyway, which is probably the case, why not blitz the hell out of him and take a chance? Maybe he gets sped up and screws up and throws a couple of picks, or a couple of key incompletions. Why not make his life miserable? Even if he beats you with it, he's going to beat you anyway without it. So why not take a chance that you might get home? It's risky, but you could get a big reward. And Allen is playing at such a high level, and I don't know if Jet fans really understand or know how high a level Allen is now playing at. It's very, very high. He is one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, whether you like him or don't, whether you remember him early in his career when he wasn't as good or whatever the case may be. Right now, he's playing at an elite level, probably one of the very best in the whole league. So it's going to be tough regardless. So those are the 3 keys. Let's go through this and see if we get any bonus information. Coverage rates, silos. What about this? Nickel Now you could see here, interestingly, this is a bonus. We're past the three keys thing now, but interestingly, we were at 74% nickel. We had speculated in the preseason that linebacker 3 was going to be a very important position for us because Glenn's defenses tend to be in base more than others. Not the case here, which kind of maybe tells you that Glenn and Wilkes do not trust their linebacker 3, who happens to be the rookie Kiko Mawagoa. We had speculated in the preseason it's probably going to be Jamin Davis, and they probably would trust him, but we didn't keep Jamin Davis at all on the team whatsoever, and I don't think they trust the rookie right now, so they're rolling, with Michael Carter out there as a nickel, 74%, and Michael Carter did not have a good game against the Steelers. Hopefully, he rebounds okay against the Bills. But that's very interesting. I don't think that they found a linebacker that they liked enough to keep in there because remember, the Lions were at like 45% last year. But I think that's because Glenn liked his third linebacker there. I don't think he trusts the rookie, and I don't think he likes so much the backups either. So might as well just go with nickel then. We'll see if that changes over the year. This is something to monitor. If this goes up, steadily throughout the year, and let's say the defense starts playing better, what you could be seeing is Kiko Mawagoa developing right before your eyes. Because if the coaches are trusting him more and more to be on the field, and we see a better performance of the defense, right? We don't want to be giving up 34 points. We'd prefer not to. Thank you very much. Then what you could be seeing is Kiko Mawagoa turning into a player, and that would be quite the feather in the Muji cap, because that's a fifth-round pick, and Mawagoa was not very highly touted coming out of college. Here's the defensive EPA per play. You can see that Buffalo is right at the bottom. Now, this is something else to watch. Was this Buffalo, and here's where we are, not great either, but Buffalo is expected to be good. We're just a giant question marks everywhere in terms of expectations, but Buffalo is supposed to be good. And so, they went up against Baltimore. Look what they did to Baltimore's defense, also supposed to be a good defense. So the question for Buffalo is, was this really just the Ravens or an off night, or is this really what they are? If this is what they are, then I think the jobs of McDermott and Bean are in trouble because they're supposed to be Super Bowl contenders. They spent the entire offseason bulking up this defense. Granted, their first-round pick has been injured, but still, who's a cornerback, if they wind up having a very low-rated defense, I think ownership might go, it's time for we have Josh Allen in the prime of his career, because you're not going to get to the Super Bowl with this type of defense. Unless they can make some trades or do something. But, I think if they get to the end of the year and they get bounced from the playoffs early, and it's because of the defense and Josh Allen's putting up incredible numbers, but the defense can't stop a nosebleed, that could be, I think ownership might go, what's going on here, fellas? I got a defensive head coach who can't get a defense, and I got a GM who spent all offseason trying to bulk up the defense, and they can't play defense? Might. Now, they do have a new stadium that they're going into next year, so probably not the best time for turmoil with the decision makers. But maybe a better way to say it would be, if they don't improve, then those two will probably be on the hot seat for next year. Then after they move into the new stadium, if it doesn't get better, then they'll be out of there maybe. But something to monitor. They're supposed to be very good. They tried everything: free agents, draft picks. They just went defense, for the most part. So that's very interesting. So that's some bonus info other than the three keys right there on FSPN, the Frankie from Flatbush Show. And I will see you next time.